The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of Bermuda's Feel Good Early Morning Show. Good Day Bermuda, supported by Pizza House and Aliana's Restaurant. I'm Terri Tuku alongside Jackie Lambert, and we are ready to bring you some feel good vibes this morning. Our feel good topic of the day is service with a smile, and we're going to be diving into sexual harassment in the service industry. Is it really a thing, or are women just misreading certain situations? So we're going to talk about all of that in a bit. Our feel good vibe of the day is joke time with Jackie. And if you joined us yesterday, I was able to guess 2 of the 3 answers to the jokes. So we've made it a thing. We're going to see if I can do that again today. You can also participate, so you'll have to respond in the comments as well. But before we get into all of that, audience, as you're joining us, let us know that you are here with us. I see that we have Anika DeShields. Good day to you, Anika. And I see that we have Sean Smith. Good morning to the both of you. And Jackie, let's jump right into this because you and I were having a little bit of a conversation backstage. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, no, we have to wait. We have to talk about this because we could go so many different ways with this topic. So the first thing we wanted to talk about is celebrities and criminal offenses. Over the last, I would say, decade or so, I've seen more celebrities come before the courts, as you could say, for certain criminal offenses. And some have been like split decision or split between like the fan base. Like some people are for the celebrity, other people are like, no, they should, get treated the way everyone else gets treated. So we wanted to ask the audience, do you think celebrities get away with crimes? Like, do you think that if they don't get caught, they've gotten away with it? Or do you think even when they do come before the courts, if they get a conviction or if they don't get a conviction, do you think it's because they're a celebrity that they're able to like move through the court system or navigate the court system a little bit better? Or do you think justice is being served, whether they get, jail time or not? Let us know in the comments. I do want to know Jackie's opinion, but before we get to Jackie, I see that we have Taja. Good morning to you, Taja. Thank you for joining us. She's watching us over there on Twitter. So Jack, do you think celebrities get away with crimes, or do you think justice does get served?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I definitely think that celebrities, what was that? More celebrities get away with it than get prosecuted, to be honest, or brought before the courts. I know there's a standing accusation with Trey Songz and Keke Palmer, remember?
Yep.
Like hid in the closet or something from him because he wouldn't stop trying to harass her and actually assault her. And I know if somebody else came forward, but she wasn't as big of a name. And then you have a few other accusations and stuff. You have the one that's out there right now with T.I. and his wife,
Tiny.
Tiny, thank you. And how they're being accused of, drugging women, taking them back to the house and stuff like that. So the fact that these 2 accusations alone haven't been actually, like, it just disappeared.
Yeah, it was like a rumor.
It was a lot happening, and then that was it. I don't know how much investigation actually went into it, but I know T.I. and Tiny didn't. I think they may have addressed it once and was just like, she's crazy, and that was it. That's all I saw from their side.
He did like a rant on Instagram. So JoJo kind of, for me, took away some of the validity in what he was saying if he is actually innocent, right? I do believe you're innocent until proven guilty. So I do believe in that. However, I do feel like sometimes because they are public figures, they kind of do themselves a disservice by putting out their side to the story in such an aggressive manner that it kind of makes you feel like, because when people say like if someone's guilty, they'll kind of be more boisterous about it, or they'll kind of get a real big attitude with you because they know it's true and they're trying to protect their lives. So it feels, sometimes it comes across as that when a celebrity tries to defend themselves in such a big way.
Yes and no, because how many times have they been accused of this? And this is like the straw that broke the camel's back. Oh my God, I have to deal with this every day. Someone's constantly accusing me or trying to get blackmail me into giving them money, X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, at what point do you just leave me alone? Like, I'm not out here sexually harassing everybody. I don't bother nobody. I just go make my music, go make my films, and go home. Like,
go about my business. So I see we have some comments coming in. So I see our colleague Larry Marshall Jr. Good morning to you. He says money more than celebrity. I do agree with that. I actually want to come back to that. Well, actually, let's talk about it now. So do you think that if you have an amount of wealth that can afford you a specific legal team versus a public defender, do you think that does play into it? Because I feel like there are some legal teams that are not as expensive and that can do a great job. However, when you can afford 5 lawyers to defend you in like so many different aspects, do you think the more people you have on your team, it helps you out in the legal space? Because I wanted to be a lawyer and then I stopped. Law and Order was definitely what made me want to do that. But I think like there are some public defenders that can actually probably do a decent job, or some people that are not as expensive that can do a decent job. But do we think that because you can't afford the most expensive lawyers, that is going to say, yes, I can definitely get off? Or do you think that there's other elements that play into it, that money is just not a thing?
So remember the Jeffrey Epstein situation? And it was Prince. Which Prince was it?
I think it's Andrew, because we had that story up. Prince Andrew, he's actually being sued in the New York federal court over alleged sexual abuse. So I think it's Prince Andrew.
So if you watch that documentary, there's actually a picture of him with one of the girls that's accusing all of these guys of everything. And we're just hearing about it. So obviously with money comes power and a certain status. So I do think that money will absolutely get you off. I mean, how many times do you see where people get paid off to be quiet?
Yep. And that's actually, so I actually want to bring in these.
You assault me or you rape me, but then you say, shh, let's just, it was a mistake. This will never happen again. It's the first time. They know how to talk to you. This isn't their first time doing it, so they know how to get themselves out of it. He was what, like 30 or 40 at the time, which means he's had that power to be able to do stuff like that since he became of age, whatever that was.
Right.
So he was very comfortable. And all I'm saying is he had money to you could bribe people into going quiet, like how can I make it worth your while? And
I actually want to bring in these 2 comments.
$100,000 to a meal to these people.
Right. So I actually want to bring in these 2 comments from Neil. We're not going to try to pronounce his Twitter name, y'all, because Neil knows I can't see all that. But he says, good morning. He does feel like some do get away with it. And he says, paying your way out of a situation when it comes to celebrity at times. And I wanted to bring that in because that's what you were just saying, Jack. Like, they are able to, sometimes $100,000 is $1 to them. So for them to be able to just give that money to someone to make them be quiet definitely can change the situation. But I also want to just talk about, before we take our commercial break, how people on social media, because I think we touched on this when we had the first part of this conversation around like the Bill Cosby situation, where separating Bill Cosby from Cliff Huxtable, like some of the celebrities that you do see, because they have these personas online or just in entertainment in general, we tend to attach ourselves to the persona that they're portraying and not them, the person. And we get so caught up in, well, Cliff Huxtable could never do that. He's such a sweet guy. He's the dad of this amazing Black family. They are
a brilliant actor that can flip-flop through it all. So as much as you're just like, no, at the same time, you're just like,
he's human. And we all make mistakes. Some of us make mistakes and other of us have intent, which is why we go through the justice system, or we're supposed to go through the criminal justice system to get justice. I want to bring in this comment from Sean Smith before we get into our first commercial break. He says, money and or relationship may get you off a criminal offense. You know, the police officer who stops you for an offense and they let you off with a warning or look the other way. Absolutely agree. I totally agree with that. And I do feel like we see that a lot here. We see that a lot here because it's your cousin, it's your uncle. They know your daddy, they know your mama, and all of that kind of plays into which I think it muddles the situation. And we could definitely talk about that after the commercial break. We're going to take a quick commercial break and then we'll be back with our feel-good topic of the day. So you do not want to go anywhere because we're going to continue this conversation, but we're going to have it with a twist. So do make sure you keep watching.
Same smooth sounds, different name. BCG Radio, home of Bermuda's most engaging morning talk shows, The Daily Hour and Good Day Bermuda. Download the app available for Android and Apple devices. BCG Radio, your station for conversations and entertainment.
Welcome back to Good Day Bermuda, supported by Pizza House and Aliana's Restaurant. I'm Terri Tuku alongside Jackie Lambert. If you're just joining us, we just wrapped up our Feel Good warm-up. We were talking about celebrities and or people with money and criminal offenses, how they are able to, in some respects, look like they're getting away with the crime or make it a little bit less of a situation because they have money that they can throw at the situation. So we're going to transition to our Feel Good topic of the day, which is service with a smile. And we want to talk about the service industry and how sexual harassment has kind of become a thing in that industry for some people, and other people might look at it and say, no, that's just how people are. And we wanted to talk about that because the world is starting to move beyond the pandemic. Nations are opening back up. You see restaurants are trying to have indoor as well as outdoor dining experiences. And so we just wanted to talk about this. And it's a topic for Jackie and I that's kind of very important because we talk about mental health personally in our like individual conversation. And since the pandemic started back in, I guess you can say technically 2019, but it really became a real big thing for most people in March 2020 when mental health was like one of the biggest topics, the only topic people were talking about. And we just wanted to talk about how the service industry has been the hardest hit industry, hands down. I really don't know from an economic perspective and how that has affected people's mental health. And the one thing that we wanted to kind of touch on was this idea of sexual harassment and how that ties into an employee's mental health. So the first thing we wanted to talk about is we found this article on NPR. I used to live in Atlanta and I became a public radio fan. Like public radio is not even that sexy. Like they don't even have the greatest commercials. It's like the driest commercials you could ever think of, but the topics are really great and they're really thought-provoking. So when I came across this article, I was like, oh, Jackie used to be in the service industry. So I absolutely would like to talk about this, not only with her, but the audience, because I do remember some of our audience members had mentioned that they like good customer service when they go out. And so I wanted to like just dive into that because
are you a good customer?
Are you a good customer? And like, are you creating a situation where someone has to pretend that they are having a great time because you are making them feel uncomfortable by what you're saying and what you're doing to them? So the first question we have for the audience is, out of 10 female restaurant employees, how many do you think have experienced sexual harassment on the job? And I forgot to put this as a question that I can show on the screen. So I'm going to do that really quickly as I asked Jackie to just talk about her experience. So this is the question that we want you to answer in the comments. So let us know, out of 10 female employees, how many do you think have experienced sexual harassment on the job in the service industry? And I wanted to talk to Jack about this because we had this conversation backstage before we got started. And you were starting to like say, well, no, I hadn't really experienced it. And then you thought about it. And it's like, well, wait, maybe I have. So talk about that. Like, talk about just in your mind, like how you were trying to decide, like, have I or have I not?
Well, because like at first I don't think about it because, you know, people are just being friendly, they're smiling, and you're trying to accommodate everybody. And of course, most of the times you're like just rushing through the crowd, making sure that all your tables are taken care of, all your clientele is enjoying themselves. And so you don't pay attention to some of the comments. So as you ask that question, I was just like, no, I haven't. I'm just like, wait, let me think about this a little bit more. And I was just like, oh, maybe but it was very, like, it was subtle comments. And I wasn't even thinking about it until just now. Like, oh, those pants look nice on you. Or, so when do you get off? Can I? And it's certain things that it's just like, huh?
Like service with a smile.
You're like, at first you think it's innocent, and then they start to go deeper, and you're just like, oh, crap, you're hitting on me while I'm trying to make sure you have a good time. And now you're holding the power to either make my job difficult or easy. So do I play along like I do everybody else? Like, you know, while walking down the street, because, you know, women are always getting harassed. Not dismissing any experiences that men have, but, you know, we have to constantly smile through the uncomfortable situations that we're put in because we don't really have the power to address it. So it's not until I go to my boss, I'm like, oh, that guy just tried to hit on me. They're like, you're lying. I'm like, no.
I'm dead serious.
But I wasn't even considering that as bad as sexual harassment as what other people would have to deal with. But yeah,
and I know when we had the conversation at first, because we were talking about inappropriate behavior, we kind of had this really broad definition, and it does depend, right? It depends on the person and the situation. So I want to come back to the audience and ask Sam to answer this question as well. Have you seen or experienced sexual harassment in the service industry? Rather, and it could be the reverse, right? It could be the employee hitting on you as the customer. So let us know in the comments, because I see some answers to our question of, out of 10 female restaurant employees, how many do you think have experienced sexual harassment on the job? So if you're just joining us, let us know in the comments. I'm going to bring up some of the comments, Jack, because I think the audience has no faith. They have no faith. And you sound like you have no faith either. Like, you're like, no, it's all of them. Customers are bad. So Sean Smith says all tan. Carmen Mitchell-Jen also says all tan. And I see Anita says all tan. But Neil says he would say 8. Now, how many have spoken out about it? Maybe 2, which is interesting because according to this survey, so this survey was actually done, and let me just bring it up real quick. This was done in March 2021. So this is recent, as in when the survey was done. It was probably from data, probably 2019, maybe 2020, depending on what part of the US. But it says 70%. So 7 out of 10 female restaurant employees had experienced sexual harassment on the job, which for me is still an alarming number. Honestly, if it wasn't 0, it's an alarming number, because that means that they have been made to feel uncomfortable in their role. But I definitely think it's interesting that all of us as customers are like, it has to have been all of them. It had to have been all of them, because are we saying that we as a customer group are like really harassing? Like, we're harassing people? Are we don't have any faith in each other? So we have a question from
at least one of us has witnessed somebody being made to feel uncomfortable. Whether it's the way they call for service, like, you guys, some people don't realize that, but that's very uncomfortable. If you're trying to do something like, hey, hot cheeks, or whatever, you know, like, you know, whatever. It is like,
term of endearment.
I can't. It's off the top of my head, you know.
Jack said hot cheeks. I'm gonna call Jackie hot cheeks when she's teaching me tennis.
That's sexual harassment, you know. No, but seriously, you heard how they call the bartenders and stuff in Bermuda, and sometimes you're just like, is this an ongoing joke? Are they actually friends? And this is something that's been going on forever, or is she actually uncomfortable and she wants to smack this guy? Like, what is it? And put him in his place. And honestly, I'm sure everybody has experienced it at least once.
I I would definitely say we do want the audience to answer. So let us know if you have seen or experienced sexual harassment in the service industry. You don't have to go into detail or tell us the place that it happened at unless you would like to call that company out from a perspective of you should actually report it if you've seen it or experienced it, because I feel like Neil mentioned, like how many have spoken out about it? Maybe not that many, but it's also if the employer isn't aware that it's happening from the customer to their employee, they can't protect their employee, so they can't make the environment any better. So if you do experience it, we do want to encourage you to make it known to the employer, whatever way, whatever means, if you want to be anonymous or not. Let them know.
I do wonder if you do, Terry, but I've done it where you see somebody that's being harassed and you look at them and you give them the like the look like you need help, you need to deal with this. Or like you're straight.
I actually ask. Sometimes I'll like low key ask like everything's okay, like, or I'll try to like, you know how you try to subliminally, like women have a code. Like you try to like ask certain questions about the situation without asking directly about the situation. And sometimes you can tell, nonverbal cues. Yes, you can definitely tell if someone's feeling uncomfortable. I wanted to bring this question in that we have from Jamal. He asks, what's the difference between flirting and sexual harassment? Like, where's the line? We put that to the audience to answer that as well. I'm going to leave it up so that the audience can see what we're asking. So what is the difference between flirting and sexual harassment? And Jack, you kind of alluded to it slightly when you said like when a guy's calling out a bartender, like you don't know if they have like a relationship outside of being at the bar together. And because you don't know, you don't want to like step in and say like, yo, bro, that's too much. I think for me, if I was because I've never worked in the service industry, I've been a cashier, but I don't consider that the service industry. So I haven't been like having to wait on people. And I think for me, it would definitely be asking for my number, asking for like, if I have a boyfriend, like asking questions about my personal situation. That to me, I would consider sexual harassment. Or like, I don't know how I would consider it sexual harassment, to be honest. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think that would be flirting, but to me, that's also inappropriate while I'm working. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
I think it all goes back to like reading body language / emotional intelligence that we all should have. I don't know if we all have it. I know most people have it. I know most people have it, but in situations like you should be able to understand somebody's body language because everybody's going to have a certain reaction depending on what you say to them. So if it's their body responds, right? So if they
tense up,
right? Oh my God, you're so beautiful, and it throws you off guard. And you're like, okay, thank you, and you go wrong, and then you come back and you try again. So if you do it the first time, you give a compliment, and then
like a flirt,
right? And then the second time you do it, and if it doesn't start to be reciprocated, now you're going into the harassment stage. If it's reciprocated and you start to be playful and go back and forth, then yes. But if you can see her or him starting to tense up and now they don't feel comfortable coming to service you, you're now crossing the line and you need to backtrack and reel it in. That's
right. And
best way I can explain it.
And we actually have some support for you. So Neil's saying exactly. And then we actually had some responses to that question. Anika said that it's a very thin line. And to Jackie's point, if it's not reciprocated, it's harassment in her opinion. Yeah. And then we have Sean Smith. He says, one is a want while the other is not. That's the difference. And I think that also has to be communicated too, because it is difficult to kind of tell someone, I don't want you to flirt with me. But no, it's not difficult. It's difficult for people to hear that rejection sometimes. Like it's difficult when you tell them, no, thank you. Or it's not difficult to tell them no, thank you. It's difficult for them to like respect that I said no, thank you. Because like you said, they come back. And it's like, all right, now I've said no, thank you. Now you come back. Now I'm either pissed off and I'm slightly afraid. I have a little sense of fear because now you come back to redo it.
Yeah, I could give an example, but it wasn't me being in the service industry. I was actually at an establishment. I'm not going to name it. And I was having a drink, and there was an older gentleman outside, but he was with his son and I'm friends with his son. So I went outside to have a conversation with the son, and I'm sitting in my chair, and the dad started to make very uncomfortable comments. I had a skirt on, so he was complimenting my legs, but he wouldn't let it go. Instead of him saying, oh, you have a nice tan, and nice definition of your legs. He was just like, oh, your legs are sexy. The things I would do. And that
is where it's like, all right, we've gone from
super uncomfortable and way crossed the line. Like, you didn't even try to put your toe in to test the water. You full on jumped off of Amity House and did a swan dive in but ended up as a belly buster. Like, that was an absolute no.
That was a fail.
And it made me cringe so much, because not only are you way older than me, the way that you're talking to me is not how you want your friends to talk to your granddaughter or your daughter. And at some point you have to be like, how would I feel if somebody talked to my sister, my mother, my daughter, any woman in my life like this? And like, I went inside and I never came back out. But you could see, like, you saw me tense up, and my friend was like, yo, Pops, like, what are you doing? Stop. And he's like, I'm just saying. He's just like, no. So I do respect my friend for putting his people in check, but like.
And your friend was the son?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's actually, so that's what something Anika did. She said too much, and the son should have put him in check, which it looks like he did, because that is definitely an uncomfortable situation that someone who doesn't know this man shouldn't really have to check him if there is someone that knows him, and that should be able to say, like, you are doing a little bit too much, sir.
You want to know if I've been back up there yet?
Like, that's like some form of PTSD when you think about it.
I actually messaged, I'm like, is that creepy, gross old man up there? That's exactly how I said it. And it's like, nope. But I'm just like, all right.
I can return.
It's safe.
It's safe.
I shouldn't have to do that, though.
He absolutely shouldn't. So I actually want to come back to the conversation we were talking about, flirting versus sexual harassment, because I see some comments coming in. So Anita says, why do guys need to flirt with the waitress to begin with? Anyway, that's a power play right off the bat. I absolutely agree. And I want to talk about that a little bit more. Like, let's talk about that dynamic between the person that is the employee and the customer. Like, and what are some things that we can do as customers to, like, not necessarily have to do or feel like we have to have a power play move? Because females do it too. It might not necessarily be with female waitresses, but we kind of do it too. Like, we sometimes can make the service employee person feel like they are less than because they are serving us, or whatever the case may be. So I want to talk about, like, have you had an experience where you have possibly been a little bit not necessarily the best customer and may have caused an employee to have to give you service with a smile, even though you are not treating them the best? Like, have you complained about your food not coming out in a certain time and you just sat down? Or are you complaining about your seating? Have you kind of, made little digs at the employee without, I guess, thinking that it actually is affecting their experience with you? Or have you just kind of, are you a model customer? That is the question. Because sometimes we as customers are just difficult to deal with in general. So we're causing the situation to go left or right. And
I hope not. But usually when I feel like I'm being difficult, I apologize so much, like profusely. I'm like, I am so sorry if I'm being difficult, but I was really hoping if I could sit at that booth. And is that okay? Yes? No? Okay, I'll move everything. You don't have to touch anything. Like, I'll do it all. Like, I know you have your other things, but I just want to know. And I'll be like, no, okay, it's not my turn. Hi, yeah, okay. So I try to be as easy as possible. Like, I try.
Because I do feel like, this conversation, we can go so many different ways with it. And thank you all for engaging with us. I actually have some more comments to get to, so don't worry. I'm actually going to bring them up in a bit. But I actually wanted us to, like, talk about the customer experience as well. Like, as customers, are you giving the best customer service? Like, yes, it is customer service from the perspective of them giving it to us, but are you giving the best service employee service? Like, are you actually giving them?
Are you being a difficult customer, or are you being easy to work with?
Because if you're not being easy to work with, then you're kind of making it difficult for them you're forcing them to have this culture or this aura around them of service with a smile, like they're having to, do a little bit more, and that will affect their mental health, right? That will possibly cause them to, outside of that situation, if they come across like someone else who engages with them the way you engage with them as a customer, they may have this reaction based on their experience with you. And then, we know how this cycle goes. The generational trauma will continue. And this is what we're trying to break. So I want to bring in this comment from Carmen Mitchell-Jones, Jack.
There was a time when women would never talk about being harassed. With more awareness, they are becoming more comfortable speaking up. Yep.
And I love it. Cheers.
Knock on wood.
We have this comment from Anika Deshia. She says, however, there may be less pushback in the service industry because their tips are important, especially if their only job is as a server. They rely on their tips, I believe. And I actually want to bring in this next question as well that we had because, I'm actually going to bring it in now. I had another question planned, but I actually want to bring in this question since Anika mentioned the thing about tips, because one of the things I noticed in the article that I read, it was, okay, I won't say it. I want to know from the audience. Do you think female restaurant employees are more likely to experience the sexual harassment if their tips or grats are not included? So if the customer has to decide whether they're going to give you a tip or not, do you think they're more likely to experience the sexual harassment, i.e. someone is, making them feel uncomfortable, so they're having to continue to overly serve and ensure that they get this tip because they know their grats are not included? So I want to get the audience to let us know in the comments. And Jack, you're going to answer that because you've worked in the industry. But before you answer that, so you have time to think about your answer. We have this question from Anika Deshia as well. Have any men been harassed by females? I haven't noticed it. Jack might be able to answer that, but I do know that we do have a service worker in the comments. So if he wants to answer, if anyone else has answered, if anyone else has experience in the service industry and wants to answer that question, do let us know, because this particular article only focused on female restaurant employees. So Jack, have you experienced it? Or have you seen it?
I'm not a man as far as I know.
Have you seen it?
Plot twist. Plot
twist.
I have seen it. Yes. Like I said, sometimes I don't know if it's an ongoing joke, if they used to have something, because sometimes you do see the man will crack jokes back. But I have seen where you can see them being like, is this really, is this really happening? This is so uncomfortable. You can see want to cover themselves. But yeah, I have. And I'm just of course I speak up. I always speak up. I'm yo, chill out. Most times it's because it's my bartender or my server. I'm yo, you're distracting them. Stop.
Yeah.
If he wanted to do with that, he'll call you and he'll talk to you. But right now, no, it's working.
Let him focus on my drinks. God,
what is wrong with you people? How am I supposed to get my service if you guys distracting everybody? But yeah, I do believe that men have been harassed. I feel like it goes both ways, but I do feel like it's probably predominantly women that have to deal with it.
Right, because I think they still generally make up the majority of the service industry. And it's that restaurant employees, so it wasn't just specific to, waitresses, /bartenders. It's also the hostess. It could be the manager. It could be any other employee. They didn't break down the different roles that are in the restaurant industry, but we can kind of, it's a business. It's not just the wait staff. There's so many more components that
it's not just the wait staff with clientele. It's not just the manager to
it could be dealing with a delivery person trying to get items. So it's we definitely want to keep it make sure that you're thinking broad, not just wait staff, although we're speaking about wait staff because Jacky used to be in that role. So we actually have a comment from Neil. He's the person that I knew worked in the service industry. He said he has experienced it from a couple of older women and also from a couple of men, which is really interesting because we know that we talked about, men are more likely to be the ones to offend, shall we say. But women do it as well. And then so Sean Smith says, yes, all the time when I was in the services industry. And he says that he's had his booty smacked and squeezed. So they have gotten to the touching. And I actually want to come up to a comment that Rashida Gobbin said. She says she thinks the worst is touching. And I feel like at that point, it crosses the line from harassment to assault.
Yeah.
That's where we've moved from harassment, which is somewhat substantial, it's subjective, to you actually touched me. You actually invaded my personal space.
Yes,
wow.
my mouth is open because
Jackie's like, I can't even.
Somebody gripped you. Like, what? There has to, and this is not an excuse, but there had to have been like alcohol or, involved.
I feel like, yeah, like you said, it's not an excuse. And at that point, an apology is warranted. Like, an apology was warranted whether you were sober. But you absolutely know, touching someone is harassment in general is obviously the first line you don't cross. The second line you don't cross is their physical space. And at that point, we've moved from, this was already an offense, but now we've added the assault part to it. It's a lot. So I actually want to come back to this comment from Sean Smith, and we were talking about flirting and sexual harassment, like the difference. He mentioned that Bermuda has this underlying flirtation way of communicating with people. Everything is a honey or a boo, etc. Agreed. Sweetie, this young thing.
I absolutely fall into that because I am horrible with names, so everybody is beautiful to me. I'm like, oh, beautiful, and then they smile and they have a great day. But I don't do it to everybody. I can't because some people you can read their auras or you can sense their vibe, and you're just like, yeah, that's not a person you say this to because you will be stuck with them for like, I don't want that. So.
Cardi B GIF forever. So we're going to get to a couple more comments before we get into our feel good vibe of the day. I wanted to come back to this comment because we had asked about, customers and are they giving actual good service on their end. And so Karen Edwards Simmons says, when I worked in the service industry, there were people who saw me as a servant and not providing a service, which is not the same, especially since I had formal training. And it isn't the same, right? It is like, you are paying for a service and that's what she is giving. And at no point is she your servant. At no point, not ever. Like, not ever. I feel like that's also, I would be interested to know, like, was that what time frame that was in, and I feel like race will always be in the conversation. I don't care how old we get, race will always be in the conversation, but like, to what level did race play a part into it? Because that also kind of is an underlying issue that people miss as well in the service industry. Like, depending on the race of your server, how do you treat that person? And to have a whole conversation on that.
Reading that comment made me think about my first day. It was like my first day as a wait staff, and they gave me one of the worst clients ever. He was a complete a-hole to
not a nice person.
Yeah, to everybody else. And so I had to deal with him, and I just kept doing it, smiling, like, kill him with kindness, kill him with kindness, kill him with kindness. And then he finally came up to me. He was plastered. He came up to me and he gave me $100 tip and was just like, I just want to apologize because I should not be treating people like this and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, look, I'm just trying to make sure that you have a good time. I was trying to accommodate you, and you were actually nasty, and I'm happy that you recognize that. And I was just like, here's your bill, and here's just like, thank you. And he added another $100 tip. To whereas my managers are standing on the stairs and they're like, in shock. So I put my tip in my pocket and I cash him on, and I close him on, and I skip around by myself. And they're like, Jack, come here. And I'm like, yeah. And all of them, this is big managers. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, did he just apologize to you? I'm just like, yeah. So I told them the whole story. They're just like, we have been dealing with him for 15 years. He has never apologized, and he's always given us a hard time. And I was just like,
wow. On that day, he learned his lesson. Yeah. I want to get to this last comment before I have our feel good vibe. This is Karen actually responding. She said it was in the 80s, early 90s, and yes, she believes it was racially motivated. I have a pin in that now because we're gonna actually have this conversation. One last comment. You tend to get that sort of behavior from entitled people, so we will absolutely wrap it up on that note. Jackie has some jokes for us, and so if you're just joining us, we've decided to make this a thing. Jackie's going to ask the joke. We're going to try to guess what the answer is. I've only done this
yesterday.
Once. My batting average is 66% right now, but we will see how today goes. So over to you, Jack.
All right, we're ready. How do you make a waterbed bouncier?
How do you make a waterbed bouncier? Oh, audience, you can answer as well. Try to answer with me. You sit on it?
Nope. One more try.
How do you make a water bed bouncier? Boy, something about a buoy.
You use spring water.
That is a good one. That is a good one. Do you have another one?
Yes, of course I do. What do you call a nervous javelin thrower?
A nervous javelin thrower? So they're throwing a knife.
Javelin. Say it.
Isn't
no,
a knife?
Say it. What were you gonna say?
Now you messed me up. I don't know what I was gonna say. The most shaky or a snake or something like that. A shaky.
But what is javelin? It's a long.
A square. A shaky.
Yes.
Square?
Shakespeare.
Yo, I definitely had the shaky part, but I was like, it's not like a knife. I meant like the little point part.
Yeah.
I was getting there. Eventually,
Okay,
I was getting there.
One more. So run out of time. What did the digital clock say to the grandfather clock?
Something about the sun. Well, okay, what did the digital clock say to the grandfather clock? I'm on time?
Sorry. Okay, hold on. Look, Grandpa, no hands.
Okay, on that note, I really hope today's Feel Good Vibe has you ready to make it a good day. Let us know in the comments by dropping your emojis. Give us a reaction on Facebook, and make sure if you're watching on YouTube that you hit the like button, and all of our tweets over there on Twitter, make sure you run up those hearts. We want to thank you for watching this episode of Good Day Bermuda, supported by Pizza House and Aliana's Restaurant. I'm Terri Tuku alongside Jackie Lambert. May Trash will see you again tomorrow for another Feel Good episode. Until the next episode, peace and have a good day, Bermuda.